if you can put it up here, you can scroll on the computer.
Right. All right, good evening. Welcome to the Board of Selectmen meeting, January 5th, 2015. Happy New Year. If we can all rise and pledge allegiance to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we have a few things here under new business. Joint meeting with the school committee to discuss the senior center at Pearlie School. Discussion with the fire department for adoption of a 28-day pay period, and then we'll open the town meeting. Carol, are you going to have a quorum here tonight, or we don't know? Maybe.
Yes, I believe so.
Okay.
But I'm.
They may be
worried
thinking more
about
like
the
7.
time.
Yeah, they may be
I'm
thinking
thinking
7-ish.
Maybe think it's 7.
Yeah, which is fine. We have the
But
fire
that's
department here.
not
We'll,
here.
no worries. They're probably thinking
But
7.
yes, I think,
Okay.
I think they have 3
Okay.
that were confirmed.
Okay, great. So why don't we move to discussion adoption of a 28-day pay period for the fire department. Al Beardsley, our chief, is here. You want to come on up, and any other folks that need to come up? Brian, you want to come on up? Gossie's hiding back there.
Yeah.
I left you out to dry.
Yeah, what we're proposing to do is, we basically have had 2 pay structures that have been in effect. We've had our per diem pay schedule, which we've had since we started putting people on shifts in July of 2008, and we had the quarterly paying. And you know, what we found is, under the Fair Labor Standards Act, we shouldn't be paying people quarterly because we're not paying by the hour. And what we're proposing here is to adopt basically a 28-day cycle for our payroll. That would put everybody on the same pay schedule.
Okay. What's your opinion of it?
I absolutely think this is the right way to go. It'll, you know, not just because it'll make it more simplified for us, but it's basically hours paid, hours worked, hours paid,
Okay.
is what it's going to come down to. Before, we would have a situation, and I'll take, you know, many times when we're out on a call that may extend multiple hours under the per call pay structure. Let's say, for instance, there were, you know, firefighters were getting, you know, $21 for the pay for that particular call for that quarter. If that call stretched over 3 or 4 hours, well, take that per call rate and divide that by the number of hours that they're out. And in some cases, they're not even making minimum standard, you know, minimum wage, I should say.
Right.
And that's not right. You know, it's not a proper legal way in which to pay people. So that's why we propose to go with this schedule.
Okay. Mike, you got any thoughts, input?
Well, I agree with the chief, and we've been back and forth on this issue over the last couple years. Depends on who you talk to. Sometimes we get different answers. But I think we've got the definitive answer as far as the Fair Labor Standards Act. And the other issue that this will alleviate, although it hasn't happened too much in the past, by going to the 28-day pay cycle, we eliminate, or we don't eliminate, but we get a better handle on and control over our overtime. And we haven't been paying overtime up till this point.
Okay.
We need to, we're required to, but the 28-day cycle, it's an alternative, it's considered an alternative to the FSLA, and it allows the town to pay, if you're on a 7-day work schedule, you have to pay overtime, time and a half after 40 hours. With public safety positions, the FSLA has some nuances in it. And in this case, a 28-day pay period equates to overtime starting at 212, after 212 hours.
Okay.
So.
Within that cycle.
Within consecutive days. It gives the chief a better management tool to, control his wages.
Yeah.
We don't normally, we don't budget for, that was the answer we were giving. Well, we didn't pay overtime because we didn't budget for it. Well, that's the wrong answer. You have to pay overtime, whether you budgeted it or not. But and we're at a, it's mid-year. It's gonna take some, it might take some budget adjustments. We're not real clear on how this is gonna play out going forward, but it's required, and we'll have some experience with it to see if we're running above or below for this quarter anyway. But we probably still won't know even going into fiscal 16, which we're putting the budget together for right now.
To Mike's point, I went through our records and just took like typical 28-day period to see, where we wind up with people that are, working per diem shifts, and then people when they do for callback and such. And I basically looked at it. It was fairly simple to do because you look at the people who are the most active, and that's about 5 people. And I didn't have, I took November of this past year, which was a fairly busy month for us. And I had one person that came close, but it wasn't even close to the 212 hours. I was really quite amazed when I looked at it. It wasn't quite as horrendous as what I thought it was going to be.
There is one issue though that that this will it's additional issue that it's being raised. We have at this time 3 full-time town employees that are on the fire department. They have a 40-hour-a-week job with the town or the school. And with this new policy, every hour one when they step in the fire department, that's overtime for them. Now the FSLA allows the employer to pay a blended rate. So you can't just say, well, at the fire department they only get $15 an hour, and so we're only going to pay him time and a half at 15. No, it's time and a half at a blended rate of their regular full-time salary, full-time hourly rate. So there's going to need to be budget adjustments made for that, and/or policies to address that.
What would a suggested policy on something like that be?
Well, and I'm not advocating it. I'm just saying, in certain departments, if you have you pick your job, you work for you don't work for the fire department, basically.
Yeah.
I'm not advocating that at all. I think we just have to know that this is an issue and make the adjustments for it.
On a projected adjustment, you mean, for the budget?
Well, we have some history of the current employees that are, so, yeah, if we know for over the last 3 years, they've averaged X amount of hours. I mean, we know the training hours and the meeting hours. That's a known figure.
Right.
So, yeah, we do have to budget for that going forward.
What's your take on that, Chief, in terms of, I mean, if you were just starting from scratch and you were building from fresh, and as an administrator, you said, oh, I have a choice to have people do the same exact thing and pay one of them twice as much, in terms of they're automatically getting overtime every time they do it at their salary for the town, right? Because they get paid the higher, the salary.
No, they get a blended rate.
They get a blended rate, but it's still higher.
Yes, it's higher
In
than
most cases, not all cases, but
Yes.
but the point is, I mean, what's your take on? I mean, starting from scratch, it seems to me you would just say, well, we're not going to do that. That doesn't make sense. Now we already have people in place, and we need to be fair, but.
We may be in a position, where we'll have to say, as Mike had mentioned there, one department or the other. You can't really be a slave to two masters, so to speak. You can't work for fire and many other departments in town where you're 40-hour also. We may wind up having to sacrifice along that line.
Gentlemen, any thoughts, discussion, questions? Your wheels are grinding, right?
It's a big change. I don't want to see it happen, but I understand due to federal laws and many other things, just like what you say. They can't even be, from what I understand, if they're the guys that you have scheduled for ambulance duty, they're paid.
Correct.
So now they're still paid employees, so it's like, it's sort of like you can't have a call fire department anymore, or a volunteer, in a way, I guess. And my thoughts are the morale of the department and all of you guys. 2 years ago when we talked about this, I think the chief said most of the guys wanted to stay with the per diem. Now, I understand that has changed within the department, and we certainly don't want to be breaking any laws. And it appears we have to accept this change. But I mean, I think that, we've talked about this somewhat in executive session. I've heard it talked about at finance committee meetings. You've made proposals at budget time on this in the past that I've seen. So I mean, I want the public that's watching to know that we have to do this. There's a change that's coming, and it doesn't look like we've got an alternative.
Now, would you
And
say,
when we want to keep the department in good morale and moving forward.
where we really, I believe in retrospect, where we really got in conflict was when we went from call and added per diem. You can't have,
Yes.
you can't have both.
Right.
You're either one
That's what we've, yes.
or you're the other.
Yes.
And once the per diem started, that's when the issue started.
That's why I'd have liked to have seen the company run the ambulance service instead of the town. You guys could have been doing your own budget and everything else. But we didn't go that route. So we are where we are. And right now, at this point, we don't really see it's sort of a wash on the budget, the way it was been proposed, I think.
According to Al,
His
I don't
figures
wanna
that he's
speak for him.
shown in
It
the
looks
past,
that way.
it's yes.
I mean, obviously, in our kind of business, same as the police, unforeseen circumstances
Sure.
occur. We get another 100 years flood that comes in and has us on duty for 36 hours straight. We can't predict those things.
But based on past records and how it's going, you see it as.
Looking, I mean, as far as the overtime side of it is concerned, in the 4-week segments that I looked at, I didn't see any issues with us running into overtime. And I know Captain Goss had done some even deeper looking, and there was, I think, maybe, Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, 6 instances, I think, over a couple of years?
That was in the past, yeah, and
Yeah.
that's based on a 40-hour week.
Yeah, based on a 40-hour week and not this, not 212. So
Okay.
hopefully, so along that line, you know, we'll help to keep things under control. And when you look at it, also, one of the things that we really haven't talked about is, and you just mentioned it a moment ago, with the ambulance side of it. Because when somebody is on shift with the ambulance, which, you know, consumes a pretty good portion of our hours, they're being paid out of the enterprise fund. So they're not being paid with any town money whatsoever. So that's, you know, that's a good side there. So again, you know, impact comes down to, probably minimizes the amount of potential impact for the town.
But you do, if an ambulance goes out on call, and at some point, don't you call in people if you need
We
them to cover?
we will, right. And
Yeah,
and we're
so that-
looking at different policies that will, you know, we don't necessarily, and we've already actually began this back in October. When we have a lift assist, there's no need to call back the entire department when you have, you know, a couple of people on duty in the station to go help somebody, you know, get back in their bed or a chair. So, you know, going with things like that, wires down, another example, then there's no need, and, you know, unless the dispatcher says that there's something catastrophic involved in it, where, you know, there's 10 telephone poles down, well, that's a little bit different. Then we will call everybody back in. But just to go check a wire laying in somebody's driveway, you know, there's no need to bring out the entire department. So that's a better way for me to manage by, you know, doing these, what we call still alarms.
And, you know, one of the things that I know ran through my mind and was, well, could we have a separate ambulance department from a fire department? But still, they're still employees of the town, so the same laws apply, and you really don't have that many, I believe, firefighters that aren't EMTs that probably do the ambulance. I think you've got a few, but not too
Yeah,
many,
just
is
a
that
very,
correct?
very, very
Yeah.
small number.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would just say, I mean, the letter of the law is pretty clear here, so it's not, I think, a lot of interpretation. We have to pay correctly. And secondly, I mean, we're evolving the fire department. There's more sophisticated equipment, there's more training, the population is bigger, there's more calls. So part of this is evolution as we become bigger.
Yeah.
So I think the third piece of this is once we have everything legal and legit and aligned properly, is to ensure that we also are attracting the good quality firefighters that we have now and continue. In other words, making sure we're competitive with other towns. So we have a letter of the law, we have a structural thing to work through now. We need to make sure that we're doing the right thing. So after that, you know, and sure, Chief, you do this ongoing, but then we want to also make sure that we're creating the positions and the opportunities and the pay that lets us have, you know, the best firefighters that we have.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we want to look at doing is, right now, we have two ways we pay. You're either private or you get an officer's pay. And really, for the amount of work that somebody has to do to become an EMT, to get certified firefighter 1, 2, fire officer, fire instructor, I mean, these are all things that help enhance their ability to deliver on the job. And, you know, in just about every fire department I've looked at that's on an hourly structure has some sort of an incremental difference each time that you get these. And these are not just like run-of-the-mill certifications that somebody goes out to get just for the heck of having that on their, you know, title. But, I mean, these are necessary in order for us as a town to be protected, you know, from you know, potential liability, and also protects the firefighter and makes them safer. So, I mean, that's what we're all about.
So I would say, you know, within a budget cycle or two, that part of what we should be looking at too is just, and again, not saying we're not, you know, I don't know, but it'd be good to know, we've done this in other positions, just understand what else is out there, you know, are we attracting the people we want to attract? Meeting the new people we're trying to get on board and stuff, and make sure we got a competitive compensation package.
Right.
But we gotta fix,
Got to fix this.
gotta make it, we gotta get it right first in terms of the process.
Yeah, I mean, I'll echo a little bit about what Steve said. I mean, we have a unique situation with our fire department. And over the last few years, we've modernized quite a bit. We've added services, and we've had much of an impact on the budget overall over the past few years. You know, as Steve says, this is an evolving organization. The town's growing. I think this is probably a closer step to becoming more of a full-time fire department in the near future. A year, 2, 5, 10 years from now, I'm not sure when that's going to come. But the days of call fire reporting is getting tougher and tougher out there. So I think this is one that solves the legal issues. There's a strong business case for this for the folks who do the work. And whether we have to or don't have to do it, it's probably the right thing to do anyhow. So I fully support where we have to go with this.
Mr. Chair, the one other thing, we have the alternative work period issue, and that's been on, that's, posted on the agenda. There's a policy decision that also needs to be made. We didn't have this issue when we're paying per call. They knew they were gonna get, the pay by the call. In this case, where we're paying hourly now, a call, could be less than an hour. And it often is, if I'm not, if you correct me if I'm
Time out on
wrong.
a call.
Yeah. So I think what would be fair as a policy decision by the board is that we at least pay a 1 hour minimum, regardless of how short that call is. There's not a whole lot of incentive to come out for a 15-minute call if you're getting paid $15 an hour, and we would be in our legal rights to pay just for the time worked. There's no requirement to pay anything more than that as far as the federal labor laws are concerned. So we didn't discuss this ahead of time, and if you want to make that decision at another time, I just wanted to bring that up while we're talking about the whole picture, too.
Mr. Chair, I say that would make sense. That goes in the category of properly motivating and compensating, outside, we need to meet the letter of the law, but it seems to me that, given the way we call people, that would make sense to me, to do that first hour pay. Which is really what happens now, right, with the call pay, they get that full pay, but the problem is when they stay that second hour, then there's no compensation,
Correct.
right?
In theory, but it depends on how many calls there are in the quarter and how many
Right.
people came out. Because
Right, 'cause
basically,
it's a pool,
what
yeah.
they've done is take the pool for the quarter, and then if it's 100 people, it's split 100 ways. If it's 50 people, it's split 50
Right.
ways. So the rates vary all over the place.
Exactly.
On shoveling, though, hydrants and stuff during the winter, that you've always done on an hourly basis, I think, right?
On
For shoveling the
but yeah, they would
hydrants.
be on. Yeah, they would be on the hour.
That, I mean, even when it was a call fire department, you
Right.
guys were doing that on an hourly basis, so, okay. On that topic of the 1 hour minimum, do you see that potentially blowing a hole in your budget at all, or any issue there?
When I did my calculations, I looked at a 1 hour minimum for calls, and then a half-hour segment after that. Because looking at trying to push it into quarter-hour segments, it just becomes so overmanaged at that point, trying to keep it into a 15-minute segment as opposed to just, goes into it, it's a half hour. And that's the way have been working my numbers, is against that.
All right, just want to make sure you're not,
Would that be,
in any peril or issues financially.
would that be part of the policy?
That would be policy, not this.
1 hour minimum and then half-hour segments, as the chief was saying?
Yeah, I think having the segment pay in lieu of, having a time clock or having shorter segments, I don't know, you can have 15-minute segments after the first hour, you can have anything.
Well, he's-
Right.
New Year's Day was a perfect example. We got called to Rowley with the ladder truck. While the crew was in Rowley, another crew had come in and were standing by, and a medical aid came in about 20 minutes or so into the first call. Now, the old ways, it would have been two callbacks, they would have gotten. But now, the clock starts moving, and they wound up actually coming back from Rowley before, and they were still tied up at the medical aid call. So, you have your people, divided up, and we had our crews available for us, for other calls, and that's what happened.
It seems to me it's such a somewhat complex calculation. It's doable, but it's so many variables in it.
Yeah.
And then you take those same variables and you lay over this new pay type. I think you've done the math, as I understand it, that we're relatively congruent and somewhat balanced on this, but the reality is, it's never gonna tie out because there's just too many variables, right? I mean, it could be less, it could be more. It really depends on what happens out there, but it does sound like from when we did math before that it's pretty apples
Should
to apples.
tie out pretty
It's
well.
pretty close.
And
It's
it's
not
not-
like drastically different.
No, and when you figure you taking, $15 and change and dividing that, in half or divide it into quarters, it starts to become a very insignificant amount of money at that point. But, in talking to some of my peers in other departments, they operate basically the same way, 1 hour minimum, when they come back, and then it goes into, half-hour segments after that.
Most of them are doing the half.
Excuse me?
Most of them are doing the half an hour on
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
following. Okay.
Listen,
Any further?
this is a policy, something we can change at any time if it's not working for the chief or for the town or for whomever, so.
Well, we need to come up with
Yeah.
how we're gonna pay the second hour tonight, right? If we're gonna be effective for this pay period.
Yes.
Okay. So any further discussion from chief's recommendation, 1 hour minimum and then half-hour segments?
What's the motion look like?
I have the motion for the actual,
They're really
Work
two
period.
two
They're
motions.
two separate, they would be two separate
Yeah,
pieces,
we
right?
have to adopt the alternative work period pursuant to federal law. And that's the,
So, Mr. Chair, if you will, then, so I move to adopt an alternative work period of 28 days for all non-exempt members of the Georgetown Fire Department pursuant to Section 207K of the Fair Labor Standards Act and 29 CFR Part 553, effective with the pay period beginning January 4th, 2015.
second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain?
Aye,
Are you an abstain or for favor?
I'm an aye.
You're
Abstain. No, I'm
abstain,
an aye.
okay.
No, I'm an aye.
You're an aye, okay, so you're a, so,
I'm not a.
so we have 4-0, okay, there
I'm
you go.
just, I guess I'm slower.
Okay, just wanna make sure. I don't know if you were pausing for the.
Hesitant.
For the abstain. All right. So, I'd entertain a motion that, well, let's have some discussion before we even entertain a motion on it, but, the chief's recommending, the 1 hour minimum, and then half-hour increments following that. Mike, do you have any input or thought on that?
no, I,
You concur with that?
that's why I wanted to bring it up tonight.
Okay.
So
So you would be comfortable
I
with that?
concur,
Okay.
yes.
Further discussion? Anybody?
I'll make a motion, then we can discuss.
Okay.
So, let's see, document here. I move to put the policy in place that firefighters are paid for their first hour, regardless of time worked during that first hour, and then in 30-minute increments.
Yeah,
After that first hour, with the pay period beginning January 4th, 2015, right?
Second.
All right. Any further discussion?
If I may, just to echo a little bit about the moving forward and the change and the professionalism and that, and I appreciate it, but I also want you to know, I've been here my life and grew up down the street from a firehouse, and never have I felt unsafe in town with the spirit that we've had of the firefighting companies in this town. So I just want that to be known, that it's, yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's always been a matter of safe. I think just that we're getting bigger and technology's getting more sophisticated.
Granted,
There's
a
other
lot of it
laws.
is for the protection of the people out there working, and I think that's
Absolutely.
a lot of it right now, and that's a needed must.
Thank you.
No, you know, Chief, your team does great. You know, I was a volunteer for 5 or so years in town, and you know, love the guys and girls on the fire department, and you guys do a great job. So appreciate what you do, and I know the training standards are just getting harder and harder, and a lot of them come down as unfunded mandates, both state and federal, which is incredibly frustrating. But you know, the team does a great job, and just talking to you know, friends and family and constituents around town, I've honestly never heard a complaint about the services that we provide through the
We've got a
ambulance
bunch of people.
and the fire department. So, you know, congratulate your team and tell them thank you. We appreciate everything they do, and we're looking forward to seeing how this works out and making it work for everybody.
Great. And taking a vote.
Oh, right, we need to, we have a second, right? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you,
Have a good
gentlemen.
2015.
Thank you
Yes.
guys very
Tell
much.
Rusty to keep
Appreciate it.
those grants coming.
Yeah, yes, certainly.
He's doing a good job on those. All right, we have a joint meeting with the school committee to discuss senior center at Pearly School. Would the school committee like to come forward and pull
First,
up the
we'd
chair?
like to have Colleen
Yeah, and
have
have,
a presentation.
oh, okay, Colleen's gonna present first? All right, sorry, my bad.
You want to present first?
Sure, why not? Hi, Colleen.
You wanna,
Council on Aging, and come on up and give us a presentation on what your thoughts are and needs are, and then we can chat. Need some moral support?
No, thank you. I mean, we all know each other, but this is Janine Desjardins, who is my chair. And
Hi,
this
Janine.
is Esther Pilardi, who
Hi,
is
Esther.
my former vice chair and a board member. And Janine's husband, Ed Desjardins, who is an architect and has been, you know, is a volunteer and a constant source of support, and has been very helpful as we looked at the building in terms of building needs too, because I look at program, and Ed has been able to help me with other pieces. So I put together, you know, a packet of what we've been talking about, and so it also has our annual report and has our newsletter for this month.
you must print those up by the thousands, because they show up everywhere.
That one.
You got one?
Do
Okay,
you have-
there's one more, why don't
Yeah.
I take
Oh,
one,
I've
we
got
can
plenty.
put one more in Dave's mailbox.
Oh, yeah,
I think we
yeah.
got it, we got
All right,
five.
okay,
I'll
but
put-
then I also have, because this is new from.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Why don't I pass that over to put in Dave's mailbox?
Okay.
That's it, I mean,
Up there, Dave's.
Mr. Chairman, if I might set the table for Colleen's presentation. Colleen and I and her board chair met with the school committee 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, December 18th.
And
I know, that's the answer.
we had a very productive meeting with the school committee. The school committee recommended that Colleen and I have additional discussions with the superintendent, and which we have. We've had 2 very productive meetings. We had a group meeting, retoured the school, and then Carol and I met, and Carol and Colleen met just prior to the New Year's holiday. So I think we have a very good, like I said, it was all very productive. But, so you're on the same level that the school committee's on. I thought it would be appropriate for Colleen to give basically the same presentation that she gave to the school committee with those additional discussions that we've had with the superintendent added into it to really make it up to date. And I'm not sure how much Carol has discussed with her committee.
Yeah, I've shared with them.
Okay.
Discussion, so.
All right, so everybody's all on the same playing field when Colleen is finished with the presentation.
May I ask Colleen a question?
Sure.
What would be a good outcome for you this evening?
Well, I didn't realize that we would have the school committee together as well, because I had thought going forward that, that we would meet tonight and that we might need to have, another joint meeting at some point in order to then have the two groups come together. My hope tonight was just to, be able to share with you where we had come from in the process so far and where we were. My hope is always to be able to move our programs forward and to have the community have a sense of where we've been, where we're going, and, we are looking at, the idea of using, and the school committee had very kindly agreed to support the concept of using a portion of the wing at the Pearly School as a center for elders. And so the hope would be to move that forward.
That's all I want to know. I want to know what I need to think about tonight for you,
Yeah.
to help you out.
Well, we, and I appreciate, the opportunity to be back before you and to have this, conversation, but I feel like we've been kind of moving in this direction over the past few years as we've moved forward with programs and services. And, it's so, I think we are here because of success. And I thought, I was listening in terms of, as you talked about the fire department, and it's so, really could use some of those same thoughts in talking about our program. Our program has been evolving and continues to evolve. We've really been very much committed to growing the service end, and we're been fully committed to services and expanding our programs in order to meet the needs of our elders and their family members. We've seen, we are seeing growth as in our population, and when we're looking forward, I had this when I put together this information regarding growth, I was rather startled, when I looked at where we could be in 2030, and it was interesting to look, from 1990 and to be able to see where we are just in terms of census, and this is using U.S. Census in 2010, which is already 5 years out of date. So we know in terms of our street listing, we're serving approximately 1,700 people. And, I was able to access the UMass research, and that shows that although the town, may not grow that much past 9,000 in, population at, 2030, but this population will continue to grow and expand. And that's where that number came in, 2,922 elders over the age of 60 by 2030. I was like, that's 15 years away. That's almost here.
That's us.
That is us. I'll be 60 next year. That is indeed us.
I'm there.
And, and so I had talked with Emmett Schmarzo, who is our program manager for the state, and so he has, that viewpoint across. He's been with the Executive Office of Elder Affairs for a long time, and is gathering the data from the other towns and cities across the state, and he said, you have to look 35 years out. He said, that's really what we are, and I said, well, that makes absolute sense, because as an elder turns 60 now, the opportunity to live is that much, and having spent, my life's work working with people that are living with disabilities and individuals with disabilities, and, when you think in terms of aging, an elder is actually typically a person living with a disability, even as in terms of age, that to age is success. It's not everybody has had that opportunity to age. This is success. If we're talking about the need to be able to serve this many people, that's success. And and we need to be, ready for that. We're continuing to use the opportunities that we have. We have our offices here. We make good use of the conference rooms here. But, both conference rooms get used. at different opportunities. Certainly, the second floor conference room gets used a lot for our newsletter production, for Shine, Shine being our health insurance counseling, for the income tax preparation. We're in and out of here a lot. The downstairs conference room I've used when I've needed to run, when the church has been closed and we've had to quickly move a program, or if Trestle Way has not been available and we've had to move back yoga or strength training. The Housing Authority has continued to be very, very kind and offer us, free of charge, their community room. And so something happens there every day. And we have our exercise-based programs take place there, and we rent the space at the church, which houses a congregate meal site with activities that lead up to lunch, because we don't have the hall after lunch. So that's why also then we couldn't, it was difficult. You can't do an exercise program at the same time that we have a health or community education program. But now, when we use that space over there for health insurance counseling and for our elder law consultation and for our VNA, our public health, Board of Health Department partners with us to provide our public health nurse, that's all wide open. That's we don't have a confidential space for them to meet. They're meeting in the hall. But, we now have very active cards and cribbage in the morning before we have lunch, and we have crafts, and we have bingos, and we'll do, I have music programs. The Cultural Council's been wonderful and has, been granted us the money to be able to do, 4 to 5 cultural programs, so, per year. And so cultural programs take place at the church, but also we've been able to use Trestle Way, and, I'll bring a small theater group in. And, this year we had, Louisa May Alcott, the Life of Louisa May Alcott, and we did that as a tea, which was wonderful. Men's breakfast takes place at Trestle Way. All of our triad programs, which is a fabulous program, bringing together the Sheriff's Department, the Fire Department, Police Department, Housing Authority, Council on Aging, in terms of building safety for elders, a safety network. And, we find that works very well there. If we do something social, if we serve ice cream or food of some sort, that program works well there. So, we have expanded everything that we've done. Anything, when we're looking at other senior centers in our district, anything that takes place in those centers is taking place here. It's just taking place differently.
Colleen, I have to tell you, reaching the age of how old Gary is was scary, but what it sounds like now is actually something to look forward to.
There's a lot. And those are programs and activities. At the same time, because then, and this was the opportunity that we had then, again, with working and having our programs take place in other places in town, it brought us into relationship with other people. And then that's, those are the harder pieces to put in place. So that's the case management, but if somebody gets to know us through one of those programs, they're more likely to come forward and say, I am having a hard time paying for my heat. What can you suggest? I'm not able to pay for my medications. I've been cutting my pills in half. What can I do? So we get those conversations, and that's the case. And there's a graph in there regarding case management. That's increased dramatically. So things have, our population has expanded. Their needs have expanded, and are going to continue. I said to Mike, our open enrollment period this year for Medicare was the busiest I've ever seen. So not only was our health insurance counselor meeting with people, I was meeting with people and online with Medicare.gov and trying to figure out the formulary and what can we suggest as options for prescription drug plans. And those were the younger people. Those were the 60 to 65. Right. That was the biggest uptick was in our age group for that.
Chair, can I just ask a question? So, Colleen, let me ask you a question. So let's assume for a second that the school is not available, and the situation that you have working in your senior center, as it is today, it is what it is, and this is what you have to work. Given the fact that there's a senior center we're going to open for, a dedicated senior center, that's going to happen, but let's take that aside for a second. What would you need going forward to help
Well,
provide the services outside the senior center,
staff.
but staffing and stuff, because,
And I don't mean, I mean increased hours for staff.
If I can
okay.
say something, I don't want, Sue, I don't want to interrupt, but you asked what Colleen would like to see tonight going forward, and I'll tell you one thing that I'd like to see going forward. I attended the school committee meeting when she presented.
Yeah.
Mike asked an excellent question over there. Is the town gonna be behind us budget-wise? And so one thing I'd like to see here tonight is for this board to get behind it, because she's asking for a huge increase in budget.
And that's what
Bear
I'm,
with me.
You're talking on a percentage
If you look
basis,
at
of
it on a
course.
percentage basis,
Right.
she's asking for a huge increase.
I didn't even
but
bring
if-
any
if-
budget numbers
you
because Mike
look
and I
at-
haven't even talked about it.
But no, if you look at it in the amount of people that she's serving and what happens, it's a good deal, and I'd like to see this board, at least, with the budget season coming up, I think that's one thing that we should get behind, is that increase. So at least also, I think it might help the school committee to make a decision if they know that the town is behind us budget-wise also to do this. So I think that's one thing that we should
right.
Well,
put on our agenda.
And I wanted to ask that question because I have a feeling that this is coming, and I think that the spirit of this board has always been supportive of the Council of Aging. I assume it's going to go forward, and, my conversation with these guys. I always thought you were underfunded, to be honest with you. And every time I said, what else do you need? You said, I think I could do it, but I got. And that
I
was.
tried for years to get them to take more money, and they didn't.
sure.
So
Now it's your time.
You don't have to go into detail. I just wanted to get a sense of,
I didn't bring
going
that.
forward to satisfy your needs, to satisfy our constituents and seniors in the town. What are you going to need, and what do we need to start thinking about to help you? That's kind of the dialogue.
Right, we don't need a number tonight, but obviously during budget season,
I
you want
prepared
to come forward with
budgets
something.
for Mike, and so he does have, I mean, we tried to think about things that we would need in a facility, and we tried to assign some numbers to that. I mean, I did research, trying to be able to, but I didn't think that we would be discussing that.
We're not.
No,
We're just
giving you more a heads up.
I need
budget
a-
season
I did
coming.
bring it.
I need a vision,
You know,
and you're sharing that vision with me.
Yeah, I think.
well, I mean, quite frankly, I think, I mean, I'm always willing to make things work.
Yeah.
In place, and, and I feel like we've made our program work, and we fit it around other need, because again, I mean, if we're borrowing space from one other department or renting space in a church, sometimes there are reasons, there's a funeral or there's a fair, I mean, or there may be an activity, we may be moved back out of this, we always make it work. But, now, I know that we could work more efficiently, and, I know that, because there is some, the time spent setting up furniture, taking furniture down, rearranging, the management, for the logistics for the staff is not easy. And for other staff, it might even be more difficult. So I've also got a thought in terms of just trying to put things in place so that as we're moving forward, just as any other department head looks forward and says, we need to, in the future, to be able to work well, this is what we're going to need. So I also know in terms of elder care that we need to be able to create, a home away from home. We need to be able to have an area that's going to be welcoming and receptive for people, that they're going to be comfortable coming and spending time with us, and whether they want to come in, for one program or one activity, or some people may choose to spend a portion of the day. Perhaps it's an individual who's caring for a family member with dementia. They may need to be able to come and have their family member participate in an activity while they take a break, and while they participate in the support program. Those are the things that we're not doing just yet. I definitely, want to be able to have, but, I mean, I know that we'd be able to build on that, that if we have things in one place, you have more flow of people. I've never doubted the town's support. I've never I've never doubted that. I know that no matter if we're, if we continue to work this way, we've got support, and that if we have this opportunity to move forward with the Pearly School, which is, we know in terms of looking at other locations, that Pearly School is a good location for an elder care facility. That it's within walking distance of the village center, that there is parking. It's a building that's already built, so, we're not sinking, a millions of dollars into building a new facility. It's, it certainly, it fits a lot of the criteria of what we were looking at.
I think every one of us have, when we were running for selectmen, we want to do, create a senior center on our ticket to try to get elected here. I think I've been doing this the longest, trying to
It
get
was
it.
one of the things that Phil meant too. On his list that he said when he
Oh,
campaigned.
one thing, right.
Well, I think so a little bit what Phil was saying is that there's a lot of priorities and things go in waves. And it's really important that when the spotlight hits you, that we look at a comprehensive piece of it. So we did a comprehensive look at the schools. We did the ambulance, and we did a comprehensive look at our buildings. And rather than just fix a thing,
I agree.
we fixed a lot of things at once and try to make it for the future. So rather than having to deal with it every year, you deal with it every 3 to 5 years or something to that effect. So I think just building what Phil's saying here is that a new facility is great. Let's look at everything going
Exactly.
forward.
Well, that's what we've been trying to look at. I mean,
Good.
even as we've, talked about the floor plans and what could you do and how could you do it. And that is, I am taking that 35-year look out. I
Good.
do want to see, the town in a position of, this growth is happening and will continue to happen. I want, as your council on aging director, the town to be ready. I have that real, sense of that this is a town that wants to have diversity in the community. We want to be in relationship with each other. That's what builds a healthy community. We value, we're, I don't know, it's very embracing of having different age groups, different diversity of people living together, and not just saying, well, here is your facility, and here's your van and your COA, you're good now. I know this town goes beyond that. That's as a community.
So, Mr. I have a question. So, and
Can I bring
you've
that
been
into the
raising your
picture?
hand.
Mr. Des Jordan's
I'd just like to kind of quickly summarize what this is all about in the eyes of an architect and how I see it. First of all, we came to town, Janine and I and our children, back in the 60s. It's been 55 years since we first came to town.
Yeah.
We've moved to Raleigh in the meantime and Byfield, and we're back here in Georgetown.
It is 50.
In those 55 years, I've seen Colleen, I've been trying to
He
get her.
hasn't known me for
her roller
55 years. I don't know.
So she goes from spot to spot to spot.
Yeah.
And there's not one town around us, including Rowley, Salisbury, they're adding onto a facility, or they already exist in a facility that's strictly a Council on Aging building. I don't want to put us in the same ballpark as Newburyport, but they're spending $6.5 million on a new facility. Now, granted, we don't have that kind of money in town, and I realize that. But look around, every single town has their own home, their own facility. For 55 years, I've come back now, and we still have the same job of Colleen kind of running here to this department and over in this spot and getting a basement of a church. We used to have 2 churches that they met in the basement years ago. And it's frustrating to keep seeing that. I would be embarrassed if I were a selectman to know that 55 years ago, we're still talking about the same thing now that we were back then. Let's get together and have a facility. It seems like we're on the right track now, I will say that. Having the facilities at the Pearly School is a big plus. So I think she deserves a gold star, maybe even 2 of it, for all the last
Agreed.
18 years that she's been here, keeping stuff
55.
moving, organizing, arranging new programs, And there's more people now that are interested in participating in the Council on Aging than ever before. So I think she's done a fantastic job.
Thank you, Ed.
Yeah.
So-
But you know what's
We weren't
also
on the board
happening
55 years
is,
ago.
all the baby boomers that are here
Yeah.
now, their parents have to come to live with them.
Yeah, it's
And
a
they are
sad
looking
shame.
for services
Dear
for them.
God, I hope that.
It is just, no, I know, I know.
Yeah.
Mom, Dad, I love you.
But that
No, but
is a
it's
fact.
Sounded
That
good in
is
here. I
just,
don't know about out
and
there.
another thing is a very lack of privacy. When somebody wants to come in and talk, there's no privacy.
Yeah,
There
it's-
is, it's a
yeah, we're-
big, big factor. So a lot of people aren't saying their needs because they're embarrassed to be doing it.
Right.
And they need the help.
Right. So Stu, I watched the school committee meeting. I know there was a lot of discussion on possibilities, and I know there's been subsequent discussions and meetings going forward. So I just want to get a sense of where your comfort is in your latest discussions with the school committee, school administration, the Council on Aging, how that conversation's going. And is there, any sort of agreement in principle of what you're trying to take? I know you're probably not going to get everything you want. And the school's probably not going to give up everything that they don't want to give up, and they're going to have to give up some stuff. So I'm sure there's going to be some give and take, and there's going to be a mutual win here. But how close are we to coming to a sense of satisfaction in your discussions with the space you need over at Pearlie?
Well, I think, we can certainly, I think we can say that we're looking at 5 classrooms comfortably. And, and I know that we can, certainly gives us a good place to start. And there's the possibility that there could be some additional space as we move forward, that we, 5 classrooms, and to make use of the cafeteria and the kitchen and share some space with the gymnasium, or,
Right.
with some eye for growth.
Where's the 5th classroom on the map? I see the 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
Services,
I mean, it
The
was-
one that says food service.
169.
Oh, food services, that's
Yes.
Yes.
library parenting. Gotcha.
So,
And then meeting room too was on that? On the second floor,
no.
upper level?
No, we talked about that, Stu, and Colleen was mentioning that once a month she has board meetings.
Oh,
So
okay.
she's just trying to figure out, like, where would she hold her board meetings? And I said, well, that's gonna be a meeting room. Once a month, just tell us you need it.
Right,
sign
got
up
it.
for it, and you can certainly use that space.
Okay. All right. So are you comfortable with, are you finished presenting? Are you all there? Or you need a little more time?
No, I mean, it's, I brought, we do receive notes from people at different times. I mean, it's, again, people are very gracious that we work with, and, we know that when we're making a difference in people's lives, and we will, the tax incentive program is underway right now. We've had our application deadline was last week, and I'm in touch with people trying to, now figure out where they will be working. And again, I, spoke to somebody this morning who said, oh, it really makes a difference. I just got my tax bill. This really makes a difference. It's a $500, abatement. It really makes a difference in this person's life. This was a note from somebody that, again, receiving some services, but it was very poignant to me, because it said, she said, it's not easy for someone like myself, who's been independent all of my life, to ask for help. But without family and with friends who are similarly disabled or live too far away, your organization is truly needed, a godsend. And it's like, really? I mean, and this was just, something that I had brought to her, and she wrote back to me this very, it was just very eloquent. And I thought, so, I'm very grateful to be working here. I'm very grateful to know these people, and, to be able to serve. So I know we can.
I think you had us at hello. We were with you.
Yes, Mr.
One other area that we didn't discuss, and I chatted just for a few minutes with the superintendent here. We have a tremendous amount, if you walked out that door over there, you would see the amount of storage, from wheelchairs to walkers to toilet seats and everything you could think of for the handicapped, and it's over 700 square feet. And perhaps there could be space maybe in the basement or something of that nature where at least we could, again, let's see if we can keep everything in one house instead of spreading it around and
It-
keeping some of it up here in a storage room.
That's a durable medical equipment blending program.
Right. Well, I think we all, from my perspective, and I'm sure my colleagues here will concur, is we want to make it as most efficient as possible for you.
Get everything in one place, I mean, we'd gain right there. You
And
know,
I'm sure-
I know that, we would be gaining, efficiency right in that regard.
So the scheduled move-in time, we're looking at about a year from now, if I understand. I'm just trying to get a sense of all the logistical stuff that needs to be planned out.
Just in January 2016.
16, yeah.
So about a year from now, we have, and when can they actually start to move their stuff in, right? In January? I'm trying to get a, official date to plan,
Well,
do some
I
backwards
think
planning.
we have to see how.
Yep.
The problem is that the middle high school renovation project won't be done in the summer, it won't be completed in the summer.
Yep.
The current shop area where they're creating music rooms
Mhm.
is gonna be pretty much done in the fall. So the only issue, I think we would know early in the fall if there was going to be any need to move anything out of the school, because the issue is if the schedule that's so tight ends up having something happen.
Yep.
You might need to use some of the space at Pearlie for some swing space in the fall. That's the reason we're talking about a January opening. So we could probably know in the fall.
Okay.
But we wanna talk, part of our planning over the course of the next year is we have to figure out, like, where are we putting walls? You know, how is that all gonna get done?
Parking,
All the
entry,
logistics around it,
right.
Security.
Yep.
Security, the
All
whole
of that
bit.
discussion, those discussions need to happen, and that's, well, we can do that, for sure. We'll have enough time, I think.
Okay.
So I'm thinking in the fall.
So it sounds to me that we're getting close to getting finality on the actual space itself. So it looks like we're getting some good agreement on that finally. And once we get that, an agreement in principle, in writing, so you know what you're getting specifically and you can plan for that. You can also budget for anything that you need to help you get into that space and resources. You can work backwards to figure out all those logistical things that we have to help help you organize. I guess the question is who's going to take it from here in terms of logistics? And is it, Mike, this is probably something that I may need your advice and help on, and the rest of the board, in terms of, I guess, from everything from moving the stuff there, right, to security and stuff like that. We just want to be informed. It's not necessarily our decision to make on all this stuff. It's, between the school and yourself on that stuff. But what can we do to help along the way? That's where we might be able to support you. Okay. So I don't need an answer tonight, but if you can just think about it, what our role is in moving this forward.
Yeah, and we would want to have a MOU, a memorandum of understanding, signed by both the school committee and the Board of Selectmen. And between Colleen and Carol and myself, I think we could work out the logistics relatively, with a lot of time. We don't want to waste our time. We need some budgetary numbers now. But, there's not, at least as we envision it right now, there's not a lot of additional costs. We can kind of, it's a DIY move and, make ready.
I see a long line of people with toilet seats, like walking around, 50 people just
The
bringing them over.
commodes.
Bucket of
But,
gravy.
Well, the rollators, I can just roll, I mean, you should see me roll stuff across
a
the
ride.
street.
Yeah, the issue, and Carol and I have had that, a lot of discussion on the storage issue. they're renting 3 pods right now of storage
Yeah.
that they'd like, and it makes sense to get it out of the, you know, they're paying extra for that.
The school?
The school.
Oh.
They need to get that stuff out of the pods first. And, you know, so anything left over is, you know, we can, you know, we're talking about taking, you know, I know it's not, might not be the most efficient way, but, and the most ideal way, but you have, you know, 3 different models of the wheelchair, and you take one each over there and find available storage. You know, 700 square feet is gonna overwhelm them right now. So we just have to get into the space and live with it, and then see how
And then evolve it,
see how
yeah.
it works. I mean, worst case scenario, Carol even indicated that, you know, the maintenance and janitorial staff can come over and get stuff for them. You know, we won't put that in the MOU, but it, you know, there's a lot of flexibility that we can work with, and I think that, you know, have a general understanding with the MOU, and then work out the kinks as we go along.
Okay.
You know, Carol's been very, and, you know, helpful with, you know, Mike Anderson had said too, that, you know, in terms of that there are some pieces of furniture that we'll be able to, you know, use as we move into the new
We'll
school.
have the
and
furniture at Pearlie
room
and the furniture
dividers
at
and-
Pembroke. So you're talking about things like, tables that can be adjusted, you know, chairs
Yeah,
that
some
can be
desks and
adjusted.
things, yeah.
We just assume, you know, work with Colleen, and there's shelves, there's a lot of built-ins
Yeah,
in
there-
those
that
was-
rooms,
yeah.
which I think is gonna be very
Cabinetry.
helpful. I mean, pretty much we'll clean it all and,
Yeah.
you know, paint whatever needs to be painted, or, you know, really scrub the floors, but really, when you were telling that place is moving.
Oh, no, it's
condition.
very, yeah, no,
We're
it's nice.
talking, Mike had a brilliant idea, when the ceilings are high in part of the room, and then they are
They
lower
flatten, yeah.
over by the windows.
Yeah.
So the idea to service this need for more confidential space, the thought was, you know, we could build offices. We just wanna talk to the police chief about it, cause they are sprinklered, so that you'd think that it would be okay, but
Yeah.
we're not the experts in that.
Fire chief,
Fire chief,
Yeah.
was it, please?
Yeah.
Sorry, fire chief.
which I already have.
And then we can, you know, maybe make sure there's a window so that the, you know, the light comes into the other
Yeah.
space. But, you know, there are ways
Things
that
we
we
can
can
do.
do that.
Exactly,
That I think,
exactly.
you know, I think the conversations, several of them have, you know, yielded, you know, what's the need, and then, well, gee, what are some creative ways we might be able to
Right.
do that? So
I mean, we will need to buy some things such as chairs with arms.
Yeah.
Chairs with arms are gonna be important to have, but I mean, I think we can figure it out too. I mean, I certainly would like to be able to, you know, set up some area for exercise so that people can actually have some equipment in place and exercise, and, you know, just area where we're setting tables and so that people can, you know, be able to play cards if they wanna, you know, or work on a project, and, you know, so then you're not taking it all back down
Well, that's
again.
some of the
Yeah, so that's what I'm
projected
saying.
budgeting things you're gonna
Yeah,
need
and that's what I
to work on
tried
with
to-
Mike is
well, I
FF&E
did.
stuff
Yeah.
and,
That's,
you
a
know,
lot of that's been done.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, I did.
To build walls, you know,
Gather.
we have to
Yeah, we wanna know about any construction, you know, and
walk it again
materials,
to figure out
costs,
exactly what we wanted to do,
labor.
and then, Mike would be happy, I'm sure, to cost estimate it for us, and then.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chair, question, and maybe Mike is, so we're kind of moving in. Is there a way to formalize this as a senior center? Such that, not that it would be reversed, but that it can't easily be reversed on a whim? Can it go to a town meeting for a vote and be declared something where we're declaring it the Georgetown Senior Center? So some kind of, you know, I always look at, you know, 50 years when we're all selling T-shirts on the seashore. And, you know, is there a way to somehow formalize this? And again, not limiting, if something ever had to happen with this, it's not from the perspective of trying to limit it, but just trying to declare it as our formal senior center, and not just, hey, some space we moved into and an extension.
No,
of
well, that's
town
what we're
hall.
talking about, is that memorandum of understanding.
I think
Don't see if there's something stronger, even if the town could vote on it, so that for it to change, the town would have to vote on it. You know what I mean? Is there a way to,
Whether you do or not, the town will always, and the boards will, I mean, you never know, the town needs may arise differently, and we may need to use that as a school again, and this building may turn into a, senior center. So,
No,
I mean,
everything can change, but I'm just talking about something a little more formal to declare this a senior center. That
Give you a gavel.
everything can be always done.
give you a gavel, and you can so declare it.
I'll do that.
If you
We have
could
an
look
opening
at
ceremony.
how we got this building, because it was a similar situation. We worked on new schools in town and got promised this as a town hall, and it took about 20 years, I think.
What'd they do with it during that period?
We used it, but it never officially left the schools for quite a while. This was the superintendent's office for many years, even though they moved out. The superintendent held the office here, and it still came under the jurisdiction of the school.
Well, there's a deed over at
Yes.
Curly School that could never change it from an educational institution.
But
You
if,
know, I know what you're saying. I mean, I get what you're saying.
I don't need an answer now, because you're not giving me the right answer.
Okay.
So I'll wait. So I was just think something to think about is some kind of declaration
Right answer, fair answer.
by us or the town that we
Yeah,
have
you
now
can write
created a senior center. That's all I'm
We
looking
the
for.
people.
We do a lot more hollow stuff here than that, so I think we can figure out a way to do
This
that.
will acknowledge that the 55 years that they've been waiting to get this finally has happened.
Well-
I think that's a good
We're gonna get a
idea.
big spotlight and run around town and
We're gonna bring
Grand
back,
opening,
we'll
yeah.
bring back those board of
We
selectmen
will-
from 55 years ago and say,
Yeah,
what's
yeah.
up?
We will,
Yeah, yeah.
we will properly announce this and declare it a senior
Hey,
center,
maybe at the town meeting. or
given
something
all
like
of
that.
what's
Yeah.
rightfully due.
Right, we don't need an answer now.
Mr. Fowler has a question or a
But just to
comment.
feel good about
Of
that
course.
that we're,
This is not gonna be a silent opening.
no, I think it's wonderful. I think people are gonna feel very good about, the idea that we're doing this as a community.
Yes. I mean, nobody in town even knows that there's a senior center. A lot of people, it's just amazing.
There isn't, there's three.
You know,
I
what do you
know.
mean?
There's three satellites
Three satellites.
I know.
orbiting
Well,
Georgetown.
I don't wanna say be careful what you ask for, but let's plan for,
Yeah, right, right.
for, all of a sudden, everyone knows that there's a senior center, so.
Well,
We'll help you.
they're coming now. I mean,
Yes.
it's not, I mean, like I said, it's not necessarily the people that I mean, our numbers don't just only include the folks that we see for our exercise-based programs, or to go out on the van, or to go out medical transport, or to, to come to lunch. It's other people that are calling with the very, much greater challenges in their life, and those numbers, as we put together, it is really, it's, I always say, you have to look at the whole, that it's, because folks will say, oh, but I only see, but it is, you do take that look holistically, and that's where we're
You
serving.
just have to let us know if there's any services that we should be providing that we
Thank you.
don't have a budget to provide.
Thank
We
you.
wanna know that, and if there's anything you need to supplement that you need
That-
more of,
that's
you
where
got- just let us know.
That's where you said, as you said, it's evolving, and we do, or I think we've, we weren't ready before, but we're ready now.
Right, and that's part of the whole budget
Yeah,
season process and,
yeah.
And
Absolutely.
this is a big endeavor for you, and it's probably a lot of extra work, so I'm volunteering Mike to help you.
Oh, he's very
Mike,
good.
whatever she needs.
No, he's
I have
very
a
good, I
15-year-old
know.
son that's, can lift a lot of things.
Well, that's good, because you know what, I mean, that's probably.
With a smile?
I don't know if you get the smile. I don't know if you get the smile,
It's
but
good, thank
I
you,
can ensure you'll get the labor when you need it.
thank you.
And
Sometimes they
some
smile when
other
the
fif-
parents aren't around.
That's true. Some other 15-year-old kids that
Yeah.
can do that
Especially if
as
they
well.
get community service credit.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
They'll smile a little more.
I think he's knocking that out with a ski program this year, but
Thank you.
Gary, you had a question or a comment?
Yeah, I would. I've got some comments, and we're all getting along good. That's, well, Mike
I gotta go home.
has hammered out a little, but I will say, I'm still disappointed. I mean, I'd like to see this whole section become the senior center. I'd like I'm concerned about the shared use of the cafeteria, and these are questions that I'd like going forward to be answered. At the school committee meeting, I came away very happy with the way I felt the school committee felt. I mean, I heard you mention, why would we be thinking of rental out, because that's down here, rental of a classroom. And they said, why would we be thinking of renting out a classroom to someone if someone in town could use it? very happy to see that. Mike, as I said, excellent question. Is the financing gonna be there? Because you just came off the finance committee, so. But I'm concerned about the entryway. I mean, you know, just for you guys, what says, senior center 152 was my first grade classroom. The entrance that we've got here right now, it's really, it's a nice entrance, really not that attractive. It wasn't the main entrance, it was an alleyway, but it would serve. But what I'm concerned of is people getting in the building with the shared use.
Here.
Would people have to get buzzed in and that sort? Because, I mean, I've spent time over there at Pearlie at the entrance when I had a scheduled meeting with you, Carol, and it was a day off, standing there, ringing the bell, called the office, "Hey Janet, what's the phone number here?" So I can, you know.
They actually knew you were there.
So with the shared use,
Is that the call? Should I let him in, Phil? Yeah. Let him wait.
I got that one, didn't I?
Gary's downstairs.
with the shared use, would that have to be?
Well, I think that's the logistics, we're talking about trying to, like Michael asked me, would we need to build a door there? Or, you know, it's sort of a door to the hallway.
'Cause
I don't know. I
We
mean, that's the
certainly want
discussion.
the seniors, the entrance to look attractive and to be able to come in. Because, I mean, I am concerned now of when it's just office hours and nobody is there, of also the security of the people working there. Because you would be somewhat separated from the rest of the building. But I would really, you know, I'd rather see no compromise. I'd love to just see this whole wing senior center. That is what I'd love to see. That is what I think this town deserves. You know, I'd like you to put something in your head as a school committee members and think about the figures that she's got about how many people she services. That whole area as a senior center, not school, not shared, okay? Square footage per person. And then think about the students that you've got and think about the square footage per student. And I think you'd find a huge difference. And so I think given that space, they could fill it and use it. I think, yes, we've sort of worked out a compromise, but I think in the future, you know, this is one of the things where we didn't have a strategic plan going forward. We're building a big school, people were throwing that out there. I wasn't one of them, Phil. I made no promises when I ran. I said I wanted to be a selectman, do what a selectman does. That was my promise, that's what I'm trying to do tonight.
I promised it.
But
so-
but it's needed, it's time, and I'm concerned about the shared use. I work in one place, I talked today with, you know, when you've got shared use, it's difficult. If something happened, you know, both my wife and I work someplace, at church, okay? Many people have access to where we are. Someone comes in and takes my wife's tape thing. It's just a tape dispenser. But when it's not there and you need it, because someone just came and said, "Oh, there's a tape dispenser, I'll take it," and you spend 20 minutes looking for it, that's 20 minutes of time that isn't useful now. It's happened to me with something as stupid as an extension cord. Somebody swiped an extension cord because they needed it. And you spend 20 minutes looking for an extension time. You're not getting good value for your time. And I'm concerned about the shared use of the equipment. You know, I toured the school last Monday, a week ago, and I know that they're very grateful and said, well, we could have shared storage down here, but I know what shared storage is like. You put something, and the next thing you know, you go to get it, and it's not there, somebody's moved it,
Oh, it
somebody's
could be
covered it up.
subdivided, whatever.
You know, they need a senior center. So, I mean, I'm reaching out to the school committee.
I think ultimately,
maybe-
Gary, that probably will happen, but it'll take a little bit of time for them to, we still have to teach the students have to be occupying some of this space for a while. There will
Well,
be something
do
down
they?
the road where maybe things will
We
change.
can't come out with an alternative for the cafeteria. I mean, from what I understand right now, you don't have full-time pre-K, do you? I mean, I thought that was a thought.
We have, no, we have 3 full-time sessions in pre-K and 2 half-day sessions.
Okay.
So we do serve lunch, that's why I said there would just be a window in the afternoon for like, no more than an hour,
Yeah,
where we would have kids in there.
right.
But, you know, if Colleen has 5 spaces and she can do her office and she has 4 full spaces, my understanding, based on just looking at her new map today, is she can pretty much run her programs there. But when she has something like her special celebrations that I like to go to, she needs a bigger space.
Right.
That wouldn't be a problem if it was
Like
4
in the
times a year,
calf or
we'd
in the
figure
gym or
that
whatever.
out, right? We'd have the kids eat in a room that day or something, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, okay.
There's ways to, but if
Just
Colleen needed the
take some-
calf every day
Right.
for her programming, well, then maybe we'd have a different discussion, but that's not my understanding. And that's why when the 5th room became had a discussion, I thought,
Right.
well, you know what, as long as she has 4 full rooms, at least for right now, plus access to those others if she should need them.
Right.
But it seemed like the office space was very important, which is that 5th room, right? Colleen, that's what you wanna do there.
Yeah,
So-
and welcoming, you know.
Yeah, because it's the first thing
receive
people see on the
and-
way, yeah, it makes total sense. So, and the children, the other request that was made is that it would be a little iffy if the children were down there, because at one point, we looked at that one space that, we now talk about having the offices be, where we would have a space that could be more, because right now, for example, if more than one preschool class wants to do an activity together, right? They won't have that space once we set up the senior center, right? So I was thinking, well, if Colleen needed a big space and we needed a big space, you know, if the preschool kids had to go down or we were gonna do an intergenerational activity or something, that would be the space to do it. So that's fine, if we don't have the space that we thought we were gonna have there, I would probably need to have time in that cafeteria for the teachers to come down and bring classes together.
Mhm.
And that sounds like that's not gonna be a problem if Colleen has the 5th space, at least initially, as she's got it laid out here.
Okay.
And again, I think it's just a cooperative effort. I mean, I think that's, and we don't know till we move into the space, you know, exactly how it's all gonna look. But what was going to be still down in that space that Gary's talking about would have to do with our technology. There would be room for our technology department, where right now we have an issue, we're storing new computers in hallways. We don't have a place to sort of store our equipment as we're fixing it and setting up, so it would be
Right.
more like, so the people who work there wouldn't be there full-time by any means. They probably wouldn't bother anybody, they'd just close their door and do their work. But they'd also potentially be a resource to Colleen. So let's say she wants to run a technology workshop, right?
Right.
And she's got access to
Computer training.
our technology coordinator right there, or
Yep.
somebody wants to learn to do something. I mean, we see it as, the people who would be there would potentially enhance Colleen's. We're also talking about doing something with our maintenance, because remember, we're breaking down our wood shop because we have to make a music room there, right? So we were talking about potentially, and again, we'd have to worry about the dust, because Colleen makes a good point about asthma, and, you know, our guys would have to keep it clean. But, you know, potentially, if she wanted to set up a program where the people could actually work on some small tools, you know,
Yeah, wood
maybe
shop
our
or-
guys would, you know, be willing to help set up a program or something for them. So again, I think it's just really a matter of what the interest of the seniors is. But those rooms we have right now would be for us to put people in places where they're being displaced from someplace else and there's still a need for the function.
I look at it this way too, is, as a parent of a pre-K kid, when my kids were that young, I wouldn't necessarily want them intermingling with seniors, not because of, well, for whatever reasons, I just don't know them, right? And I don't want my kids hanging around with adults that my kids don't know. And I don't think the seniors want little kids running around, around them either. So we do have to be very deliberate in making sure that there is a separation
Separation.
between
Yeah.
seniors and
Delineation,
pre-K
yeah,
students
absolutely.
out there. So
Legal issue,
this is all logistical stuff that we're
Right.
gonna have to work
Exactly.
with over the next few months here. To, you know, there's engineering, there's codes, there's all sorts of stuff. We've got a security and entrance, and Colleen, I can tell you that Gary will not let just a door be there. It will be some sort of nice entrance, and we will help to make that happen.
And just structurally, I mean, this is a starting point, so I agree it'd be good to have it all there, but I mean, world domination by the seniors is inevitable on this. If you look at the structure, it's just gonna happen over time because it just makes sense, but there's real logistics as a new school opens, and the school gets renovated, and you go in there, and, you know, you might find different needs, you know, where you'd want a bigger room versus two smaller rooms, that I think getting the starting point with the understanding that your needs will probably get bigger, not smaller.
But that's the evolution process.
And that's, and that it is structured, that it is set up so that there is potential for expansion as things change over time.
I'd rather take the potential out and do it.
You just want
Well, yeah.
domination right now, global
Well,
Well,
domination.
the
you know,
school,
it-
Gary, the school still has needs right now, and you know, it's a, the memo of understanding is gonna clearly line things up, and I'm going to insist that in that memo of understanding, that it is well known that the need there for the senior center is going to be greater, and that it is expected and anticipated that this fully become a senior
I feel
center.
like, once again,
It's just, we can't do it all
we're getting
yet.
part of it. I don't,
I,
as
I'm
said,
pleased, I'm happy with the way, you know,
What's
the
this-
conversation's been going with everybody. You know, I was concerned when I heard 4 rooms, and now we're at 5, plus we've got, you know, cafeteria and gym use, so that's fantastic. But the need will grow, and we're not fully there yet, I don't
You
I
gotta
don't- I
remember
don't
one thing, they
think.
don't need the cafeteria, they just need a place to eat. They're not gonna be using the cafeteria.
Well, but for meeting space and stuff
Hey,
like
you
that
need to
earlier
No,
morning.
that's not what I heard.
Need to
Do you
cook,
mean,
too.
I'm sorry, Gary, do you mean for
We'll
children
work
or
out the
for school-age
logistics.
children?
For
or
Yeah, I
for
mean,
school?
there's a lot of
Okay.
logistics that, you know, we're
I need to
gonna.
cook for elders.
You need the that's what
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
saying, you need the cafeteria, but from what I understand, the meals come in, they won't be prepared there.
You know, that was part of the discussion, Gary, but I don't know that that's been
That's a
finally
TBD.
decided.
TBD.
That's a TBD.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what our food service director would have in terms of
Mhm.
needs for that. I don't anticipate it being a daily, every day,
Right.
they're making meals there, but I wouldn't say that there aren't any times when they would wanna be.
Well, like
making
men's
meals.
breakfast you would
No, but
have
for
there.
elders,
But
yeah, I
Colleen would
mean,
have some needs
yeah.
for it.
we do, I mean, we have our congregate meal site, food does come from off-site. The food for the congregate meal site comes from the Merrimack Valley Nutrition Project, which is currently housed in Greater Lawrence Tech in Lawrence. Our food arrives and we reheat our food, or cool our food to serve to our group. At the same time, we serve as a hub for Meals on Wheels, which comes from the same organization.
Okay.
Not only just for our town, but also for Boxford. So we actually are, you know, helping to facilitate the meals getting out to Boxford as well. And there's this shuffle.
Symphony,
Yeah, as food arrives and then goes back out.
right.
You know, right now we have lunch
And currently, are you doing it at the
That's at
church
the
or
church.
Trestle?
Church.
At the
Church
church.
is where we rent for
Okay.
our congregate meal site. And because we actually, you know, you need to be able to have a refrigerator that can be just for, and people have to be Serve Safe certified, so we have to, you know, we did have to have some needs, and so that's why they use the church. But we have three lunches per week, you know, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, we serve lunch. If we're gonna be in a setting where, although we probably won't be able to expand with the nutrition project, but we might be able to do a scaled back lunch on that 4th day. We might be able to do a soup and salad or, you know, soup and sandwich. And that would be ideal because again, we have people that, you know, they get to Wednesday and they're lonely, you know, eating by themselves on Thursday and Friday. So that would be a nice growth opportunity. Certainly things like our men's breakfast would be far more efficient. We do a number of teas during the, you know, and everything that we do in terms of programs, you know, we serve refreshments because if you have something for people to eat, they come. They
Coffee
come.
and Danish, whatever, yeah.
But, you know, I mean, I'm very involved with a, you know, mobile food pantry, and that's began in Amesbury, Our Neighbor's Table, and Rosie Werner, who began that program, had said to me, you know, hunger comes in all forms. You know,
Yeah,
it's not
emotional.
just
Yeah.
people being physically hungry. It's, you know, spiritual hunger, social hunger, and it's very true. I mean, so.
Well, it doesn't preclude you from using the church or town hall in Trestleway
Well,
in the
no.
future as well.
Oh, no, but yes,
So,
but I mean, if we're gonna,
you know,
no,
you're
but a
gaining some
congregate meal
significant
site
space.
will need to be with us, you know, that's, we need to be able to manage, it certainly, and I see, you know, we might be able to do, you know, things like Triad works very well at Trestleway, and that, things like that would still, the congregate meal site needs to go with us.
Okay.
I have to be able to
And
manage.
if you had that full
Absolutely.
discussion with the school committee yet, or is that?
Yeah, that's,
That-
I mean, that's
I
our
think I
meal
missed
program.
that part of it.
What was- I'm
Congregate
sorry.
meal site.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
have
You already
that.
vetted that out.
Carol,
Okay.
we've,
Is school committee, you guys, thank you for being here, by the way, and Happy New Year, and thanks. And I know you guys aren't doing a vote or anything tonight, but really appreciate you just coming in and hearing, and, you know, I had seen most of the meeting with you guys, and appreciate that. Any thoughts, comments, or based on the floor plan you guys have seen tonight, any concerns, or I mean, just,
Well,
you know, I think we're all headed in definitely the right direction, which is
Yeah, I
fabulous.
definitely agree. I'm glad, Gary, that you felt it was a productive meeting and you left happy, because I know, from the atmosphere of the meeting, we
So I
were
thought-
all, you know, we were very happy.
Oh, very supportive, and
Yes.
You know, we
definitely.
really were. I've been hearing about a senior center for years too, and I'm, you know, me too.
There's a reason why I've been doing this 8 years.
I know.
haven't got my senior center yet.
He's trying to check it off the
I got
list.
one more year, I might be able to fit it
He's
in.
checking it off his
But
bucket
it was
list.
the first time that we had, you know, we had actually sat down and looked at your needs,
Mhm.
and then to see the school's needs too. And I think that's,
Yeah.
you know, that is important, because we don't wanna give something away that all of a sudden we're gonna say, we do need it, whether it's for, you know, a little time, or whether it's for a longer time. So I think, the fifth room, I was very happy when the superintendent called and said that was something that we would be willing to give up.
Mhm.
You know, and then she had talked to Mike Anderson. I just think it's great that we can all work together. You know, I recognize what your needs are, and I'm glad that you recognize what our needs are, but you do have our full support, and I would really love to see, you know, what Gary is looking at, just you know, an area that you can call your own.
Yes.
But I do think, like Phil was saying, security is important.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
There are so many things that we really need to discuss.
Mhm.
Right,
Yes.
and I'm confident that we will. Yeah. I think it's great.
Well, I know you're
far more than
definitely
what we've
supportive of
ever
this
had
board and
together.
school committee,
Yeah.
and so, you know, we're making
Yeah.
great progress here, and
And
it's,
it's far more than what we've had
Mhm.
as a town. So, I mean, you know, I think that's really wonderful to see.
Yep.
You know, that, you know.
I think you'll be in good shape,
It's
and
just a-
it'll be an
it's been like-
evolution, and
yes,
not a
exactly. Well, that's why I keep
revolution, you know what I
saying,
mean?
yeah,
And
yeah,
it'll,
elder revolution.
it'll
But
come
this is-
along.
This has been the first real opportunity to move something forward, and
Yep.
so, and the concept has, you know, been well thought out.
So like
So
Phil
it's-
said, you know, your time in the spotlight's finally here.
It's not how I said it, but
Somebody
That's what I
said
meant.
something
I
similar to
clarified
that.
it for him.
Okay.
So do we, from our side, need any motion tonight, like a motion to do whatever Colleen and COA want, or?
I'd love a motion to do whatever I want.
Yeah, blanket, just get a check. Do we need, is there anything that we officially need to do, or is this more information?
No,
No, really
it
just
was
discussion
to
and,
hopefully get all the people, like I said in the beginning, get all the people in the room at the same time, and
Right.
everybody's working in the same direction, and I think we've accomplished that.
yeah.
And our goal, I'm sorry, just one quick, so our goal is this next budget cycle, so when we get approval in the spring, that we have budgeted the money to do the security and all the other stuff here.
Yeah,
Yes,
Bethany and all that.
Come up with a, you know, a memorandum of understanding.
Or proclamation or something.
declaration.
A declaration.
Get you a gavel.
Declaration of Understanding.
Yeah, there you go. Great, Mom. I think,
DOU.
everybody good on this? Everybody
This will
great?
be noted at the town meeting, can I assume that, just to, so let the public know?
Yeah, we'll definitely bring it in and mention it, and maybe even do a presentation
I'll have
on it
t-shirts.
at
We're
town
gonna do
meeting.
it.
Yeah, t-shirt.
What would the T-shirt say?
Think about that.
The declaration of the official opening.
Senior week. Oh, that's the wrong t-shirt.
Yeah,
It's time.
It's time.
It's-
right.
yeah.
Yeah. No, I really appreciate everybody's efforts on it, and thank you, everybody. So it's great to see that coming to fruition, so.
Yeah, I think
Great, thank you.
It's nice to see everyone working, you know, in the same vein and moving in the same direction, which is good. It's great. It's taken a while for that to happen, but I'm pleased over that.
55, 56 years, what's the big difference?
We are the friendliest board of selectmen around, so.
Well, thank you all, and
Thanks, guys.
Colleen, definitely on your budgeting, definitely work with Mike on your
Yes.
budgeting and
No,
your
I'm-
construction projections and furniture, fixtures, all that. All right? Good,
I think we'll be able to come up with It's huge, but I think we can do it.
All right. Thank you to the school committee and our lovely superintendent for coming in tonight. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen.
Have a nice evening, all.
See you later, and Happy New Year, by the way. Gents, don't forget the warrant before you leave, to sign that off. Have we all reviewed the minutes? All right, so I would entertain a motion to, I'd entertain a motion to approve the executive session and general meeting minutes from December 15 of 2014.
Just the executive you asked for?
Both. I mean, you can break them out if you
So
want.
moved.
Any, I have a second.
Second.
Any discussion? Any changes or tweaks?
Yeah, just to clear something up.
Yes, sir.
As usual, page 3 of 4.
Come on, you painters.
Page 3 of 4.
3 of 4.
Down in the bottom where it says, Mr. Fowler stated they have a written policy that zoning be on spring and not the fall town meeting. I think what I said was unwritten. It's sort of an unwritten policy some consider, not written. I don't think we've got a written policy on that.
For the fall town meeting?
Yeah. I think what I was stating is sort of an unwritten policy.
Yeah, we should have a
We try
SOP
to
or whatever.
not, yeah. So,
Chair, I move that we amend the general meeting notes to include the changes that Mr. Fowler has asked for.
Second.
Any discussion? Janet, are you clear on that?
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
aye.
All right,
I gotta vote.
can we, yeah, so all those in favor of the
Both
meeting minutes as amended? Or accepting the meeting minutes?
Do we have a motion and a second on that?
Yep.
Sorry.
We did, yeah.
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you. Mike, anything special we need to do to open the town warrant? Roll
Motion.
call vote or anything, or no, just a
No,
motion?
just a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we open the town meeting warrant for our annual town meeting for Monday, May 4th, 2015.
Second.
Discussion?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
It's come to my attention that as far as petition warrant articles, we don't have a standard. We don't have a form that somebody could pick up, fill out,
And get it going?
you know, and everybody's kind of left to their own devices.
And it's inherently the biggest problem we run into, is the
Exactly.
phrasing of it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I actually was just working on this today, and at our next meeting, the warrant will be open for at least 6 weeks.
Right.
So I think by the next meeting, what I'd like to bring, after I work through with the town clerk, because she's the one who interfaces with the petitioners.
Right.
uh,
Whatever that process and
yeah.
form is. Okay.
Yeah,
Good.
so we'll have forms, you know, town designated petition forms that, you know, will at least help people formulate petitions and get it right the first time.
Okay.
Without a whole lot of,
Agita.
yeah, and legal hassles too.
Okay.
So,
Great. Love that idea.
I'll bring that back to the board at our next meeting.
Okay. Any further discussion on the warrant? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. Thank you, gentlemen. On our selectmen's report, defined purpose spring annual and fall special town meetings. Mike's gonna just kind of set the table on this one a little bit, and then we can have a quick discussion on it and
Yeah,
follow up on it on the next meeting as well. Because we'll probably need to get there after you see what he's got coming.
Yeah, this all comes from the DOR recommendation, one of their recommendations that we should have something in writing as to, you know, what happens at the reasons for a special town meeting. I just happened, you were distributed that thumb drive with the new handbook from the selectmen, and in chapter 4, I came across, you know, some answers to the issue. I've highlighted them here on the page I just distributed. In my research on policies from other towns, it goes from one town will only hold a town meeting if it's an emergency or unforeseen nature only. And then other towns, they have, the law says you can bring up anything at a special town meeting, as long as you have 15-day notice. You can have, approve budgets, you can appropriate money, you can,
At special time.
at special town meetings, it's identical to the issues that are taken up at an annual town meeting. Now, the DOR is trying to say, well, they like to see only financial matters taken up at the annual town meeting. And their main reason is because special town meetings are not well attended. You get a bigger turnout, generally speaking, at annual town meeting.
You get 10 more.
That would be
Yeah.
generally speaking.
That's, yeah. In
It's all
our
relative.
case, we
Not
still
so
have
much.
a problem getting 100 voters, no matter what meeting it is. But it does, you know, so I don't necessarily think not having financial matters at a special town meeting is bad. And I can see, and in the cases that it points out here, there's absolutely a necessity to have some of them, some of the times. It might be that we don't want to make a habit of it,
Agreed.
and just say, you know, you could say, our preference is not to have financial matters taken up at a special town meeting. However, you know, if we need to make a budgetary transfer because we didn't get our revenues right from the state. We were asked to vote on our revenues in May, and we don't get our revenues until July.
Well,
Yeah.
the end of mid or end July even. I mean,
Right.
Yeah.
So there's got to be some give and take there. You know, we might get a gift of land after the May town meeting, and you might want to adopt it, accept it. We may get grants that we need matching funds for, and they would have to be appropriated. Things like that that are beneficial to the town, and we wouldn't want to, you know, cut our nose off to spite our face just to have a hard and fast rule.
That's what Steve was making clear at our last meeting, I
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah.
And I know from my discussions with the Finance Advisory Board, you know, they think we need that option. It's preferential not to have to do it all the time. We want to get it right the first time if we can, but it's, you know, it would be good to know that we have a backstop, a place where we can fix things that if they're broke and need fixing. So, is there, I mean, they even give, some towns will bifurcate their town meetings and say only zoning in the fall, no zoning in the spring. You know, I don't know if there's a preference for that here. I'm just saying that's what some towns do. But then again, you're faced with the, you know, lower, traditionally lower attendance in the spring, unless it's a real hot, I mean, in the fall, unless it's, you always have your hot button items. I mean, we had the school vote in the fall.
Yeah.
And we certainly had plenty of people show up.
Yep.
It was a hot button item.
Yep.
it didn't matter whether it was in the spring or the fall.
Right.
Because everybody came out.
And that was dictated by state, in that case, the external factor where it was the state approval process, right?
Right.
Yeah, timing of the
MSBA
MSBA.
said, you know, hey, you gotta make a decision here.
Yeah.
So if we're only looking at a policy here, right, which is a guideline for
It's
future
like a-
generations.
Right.
Not so much a
It's-
bylaw, but what, an SOP, or are you thinking a bylaw? More of an SOP.
No, I don't think we need, well, the DOR suggested it be a bylaw. I don't know if we need a bylaw or
The
not.
bylaw-
That would be up to you.
If we did a bylaw, it would have, it would be, it would have the flexibility for exceptions. I mean,
Right.
either way, it doesn't matter. I mean,
I think,
I'd like to do it as a bylaw.
I
be honest
think
with
some of what Mike presented at finance, we talked about it, that is codifying the budget, and some of that was gonna be a bylaw, and I think some of that was things had to be done by a certain date. And, you know. and-
All right, so if we tighten it up as a bylaw, then we have the codification and for the budgeting and the whole town meeting thought with the flexibility built in that we need.
Then the board has to defend itself from making a decision
Yeah,
as an exception,
that's-
if we make it a
and-
bylaw, so
Right.
I'd prefer
Okay.
to do that.
All right, so then it's, obviously, the benefits, the upside is more solid. It gets everybody out in the open, there's nothing, it's probably more
But I think
transparent than ever.
But wouldn't you say that if you look at kind of the unofficial definition of a bylaw and a policy, the policy has no teeth, it's more for
Right.
informational, and a bylaw has teeth.
Right.
And so if anything is open here, if we just went through what Mike just went through and that and saying, well, really, anything's possible, is this really bylaw worthy where we want something that has teeth? We're basically stating with emphasis that it depends.
That was the question, well, that was the question I had at the
Right.
finance board. I said, well, what are we gonna do? It's a volunteer board, are we gonna fine them? I mean.
Well, that's the thing, is if they miss the date on the bylaw, it's like, what happens? And
I think,
double secret probation, or?
But I think a bylaw is more the town telling us as opposed to us telling ourselves. Right? And I think
again,
it sets
setting it
good
up for
fiscal and monetary
future.
policy as well for the towns.
Right, setting it up for future, I think for strategic in the long term, when we're all not here, I think it makes sense.
If
I
I
agree on
may,
putting something there, but, so to me though, the town has already told us you're in charge of the town meetings, right? They've already done that bylaw, we've got that piece of it. What we're trying to do is give guidance to the future to say, major issues should be focused on the spring, and all efforts should be scrutinized to see if the fall town meeting is actually needed, or something like that. So that's what I'm saying, the bylaw's already in place, we are in charge, and I'm saying it incorrectly, but we're in charge of setting the warrant for the town meeting, and putting the town meeting out there. I think we're talking policy on this, I think we're just trying to give guidance to future boards on the reason there's a spring, like coming into this, I didn't know why there was a spring in the town per se, you can read a little bit, but.
But we also want to give guidance to the town itself.
Yeah, I
So for the folks that want to know why we won't vote on a particular item at special town meeting versus annual town meeting, I mean, it would be, here's the bylaw, here's why we're constrained and we can't just do it. I mean, it's one thing, the SOP is just a little looser. I think a bylaw would absolutely require us to be accountable to the town as opposed to ourselves.
But if we're gonna override a bylaw, how does that happen? Doesn't it have to happen at town meeting?
Yeah.
So now.
You have to go to
if
town
we- if
meeting
we
to get
make-
it changed.
Then that's where I disagree, because if there's a major financial thing that we think is important to get out there, to say, have to bring it to the town to whether we get it on the agenda, I mean, I already, my opinion is, and I'm hearing you.
But that's
the
where the
town's already
bylaw
empowered
has
us to make
got to
that
have
decision.
that's where you put
The
into the
bylaw would have
bylaw
to have
provision.
language in there that has special circumstances, so, it can be tight enough yet flexible enough that we could do what
And-
needs to be done.
Again, we control the warrant, so if we needed a special town meeting, let's say we had the bylaw, and we needed a special town meeting for some budgeting purpose, or line items, or whatever, that just becomes basically a vote on the Board of Selectmen to execute a fall town meeting, or a special town meeting. It doesn't even have to be fall, it could be a week after, spring town meeting, it could be a day after spring town meeting. Well, it can't be a week, but, you have
you would
posting and
limit
stuff,
what we could
but-
put on that agenda, though.
It should limit
In-
what we could put on the addenda.
Unless it is voted on
generally
by the
speaking,
town.
unless there is quote an emergency, and Mike and I were talking about that, there, you know,
That's
how do you
our-
define emergency and
then
whatever?
That's
and, you
our
know,
discretion.
And that's where you have to say it's really a vote of the Board of Selectmen to determine if it's an emergency or not, that calls for fall meeting.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I like the idea of the bylaw factor for what Phil's talking about, but it also sets it up for future boards when we're not here, and it also helps to fit into more of the streamlining structure of what we do as part of a overall strategic move for the town and the future governance of the town. I mean, here we're talking about, you know, for instance, you know, the senior center and stuff. I mean, we're doing a strategic plan. We're building the plane here as we fly it, you know what I mean, here in town. And with the school coming, and then this council on aging, and then, you know, some of these things, what we're doing is we're taking these DOR things and building basically our strategic plan as we go, you know what I mean? On the fly through, just muddling through the operations of day to day and everything, which we're accomplishing, and it's fine, but there's some other things that we need to do, and I think having a bylaw like this
Smoothing it
helps to solidify it and just put it a lot more into a structured structure, so to speak, so that future boards and folks and administrators and stuff can come in and know exactly what's going on.
So we don't have to decide this tonight.
No,
Would-
we don't
would
have to
it-
take a
would
vote on it
Would it be okay
tonight.
if we asked Mike to, if you wanted to ask Mike, through me, I guess, to put some language together?
Mhm.
I think you understand the spirit of what we're trying to,
Yeah,
But-
that's,
and either
that's why I
bylaw or
wanted
policies,
this
so-
conversation to take place.
if you could draft some language for us, then we can figure out where this goes from here
Yeah.
and make some adjustments if needed.
Yep. Gary?
Well, I looked through some stuff that Mike has given us in the past, and one of them was Georgetown Board of Selectmen Standard Operating Procedure Annual Town Meeting Warrant.
Mhm.
And I don't remember that, but it says approved October 4th, 2010. So I can't remember whether,
Yeah, we've,
I did-
we've
I
discussed this
think-
a
I
few
think I was
times.
on the board then, and I
Yeah, we
remember
had
Mike giving
SOP
us a
stuff
lot.
that we were
But-
talking about,
But, so, I mean, you might redistribute that.
or dig through it and see what you can pull out of it.
If I could just talk about a few of the things that are, you know, what do we each perhaps see as a problem every year? And one of the things in here was, and we may do this, like it says, generate warrant article tracking list. Is that the numbers that you give to the thing instead of just calling it an article?
Yes,
Okay. But,
that was adopted, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
what we said,
we've
October.
adopted that.
That's
yeah.
what we do,
Yeah,
and
okay.
we have the numbers
Yeah.
changing all the time, you know,
Yeah.
where they.
yeah, no,
So we have
it's
the
got our
ATM.
name and it says approved October 4th, 2010. But like, one of the things that I see that perhaps, I don't know, maybe logistically is the correct word, I don't know what it is, but by the time we get to May, I've been given anywhere from 5 to 10 different copies of the town meeting warrant, and it's, which one are we using tonight? So I don't know if going forward, if
Believe me,
things
we
change.
have that same problem
If,
ourselves.
as the changes come as we're going forward, if perhaps we could just get the change and not the whole thing with the change. I don't know, that might be harder, I don't know, I don't know what's the easiest thing, but I mean, that is a,
You know what I found, Gary? That might help out if you simply put an expiration date on the document.
well, generally the dates are on there, I mean, and that's.
You mean a printed
excellent.
date?
No, an expiration date.
What do you mean an expiration date?
This document expires on October 1st, 2013. Now, if I'm on October 2nd, then I've got an expired, where's the new one? And that's one way, I've seen it work.
Well, what about just can't we follow it as like a legal document, just a black line document? Track changes, and then when you add and dump stuff, you know what's being deleted and added?
Yeah, but you don't sometimes know which version of that one was actually
Well, the
struck.
dates are on them, so I mean, just
Yeah.
if there's something that you can think of that might make it easier going forward,
We always
because
date
that,
them so that you
and as
know
you just said,
what's the
it's a
latest.
problem for you also,
Yeah.
so that,
No, it's clunky. There's definitely no question about it.
It's tough to keep them
but I mean,
and with the track changes and stuff.
you know,
We try.
But I think you're codifying the budget thing. I was looking for my copy of that. I know I had that from the meeting, but that takes some of this even forward. Like this, it's got, you know, we start in we're doing in January what this calls for right now. But I think, you called for starting the budget season even earlier, right? And so that would
Yep.
be part of that
Well,
bylaw
that's
thing.
codifying the whole thing, the whole process.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. And the FinCom's doing that with you, right?
Yes.
Working on those recommendations?
Yes.
Okay. Great. All right, any further discussion? I think, Mike, if Mr. Trapani's request is perfect. Do you want to work up some language and we can review it on the next meeting if you can get it done by then, or? That would be fabulous. Okay, thanks for the input. I would entertain a motion, we're gonna do some license renewals here, to renew a Class 2 used car sales Georgetown Auto Repair and Sales, Inc., expiring December 31st, 2015.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Where are these guys now? Just this one?
This
Across
is,
from Dunkin' Donuts.
this is
Okay.
the
gas station.
green, thing, what the heck, I
Okay,
can't
yeah,
think of it.
BP?
But it's-
BP, thank you, the old, BP station. And we have a renewal to expire December 31st, 2015 for secondhand shop for Seidler's Antiques.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? We all good on that? Janet, wasn't there some issues? We're all,
Yeah, no,
we're all
that
good?
was
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, so that's all we got. Anything else to bring up?
If I could, and this is probably something that's maybe gonna come up with going forward on the warrant or somewhere. I'm hearing things, I've been to a few school committee meetings recently, and I hear some things there that I'm not hearing here, and that's working on a joint thing on the maintenance and that with the town, I guess the maintenance and the custodial and that, and just if we could talk about that at a meeting and have an update on where we
Yeah, you
are,
wanna bring us up to
how
speed on that
that's-
next time?
how that's
Or is
being
there nothing up
handled.
to
and-
report
Well,
yet?
I can give you a real quick version. I think, based on our current discussions, on the town side, we are fine with custodial help. We have,
Using the custodians?
I believe we have a more cost-effective way
Oh.
to keep our buildings
Okay.
clean.
Mhm.
I haven't heard one word from anybody that says, you know, our buildings aren't presentable.
This is private services?
Yeah,
Yes.
Right?
yeah. Yep.
And we get them, you know, believe me, it's a lot less than what it would cost to hire another janitor. A lot less.
Yeah,
Half.
we had this discussion, I know, a few years ago, and I remember that it came up about looking at privatizing all the janitorial services in town, and it was about as hot as a nuclear weapon because of the unions. And I'm not, I mean, I get it.
We do need maintenance, and I'm all for joint maintenance. We
maintenance.
just don't need joint custodial.
Okay.
I guess I just, like, now do you put out minutes and reports as that goes along? I get, you know, I'm just looking for transparency and to know where we are with this and who's on this, who makes up this.
No, we don't
It's
have.
been
maybe
more
we-
just
we
kind of
don't-
department
we
head type
haven't-
meetings.
We haven't met in a while.
So that's why I say maybe if we could just discuss
Since the
it so that
beginning of the
going
summer,
forward,
probably.
we're
Right.
open and we know what we're talking about instead of it being a surprise at some time if we're looking for.
I think the last time you guys met about that was July, maybe.
Yeah.
You know,
They were-
and before that, it was October the year
They were-
before.
We're putting together a maintenance budget. It'd be part of the budget, this budget cycle.
The whole process.
Okay, so that's it. It'd be nice to know a little ahead of it rather
Yeah.
than just get surprised and say, where did this come from? Who's been working on that? And-
No, it'll be part of the budget. I mean, there's gonna be as far as I'm aware, there's gonna be a joint maintenance department. it's gonna be, as, you know, we're gonna contribute, the town, you know, whatever we're spending on maintenance, will contribute and combine it with the school maintenance. And the school will
Basically
be
execute it.
providing the maintenance.
They'll be executing it.
That's the plan going forward.
Will that also include like centralized repurchasing of materials for maintenance?
It's ultimately the plan,
Yes,
yes.
yeah,
Yep, streamline it all.
you know, and designate, you know, well, the plan was to ideally get somebody a maintenance person that was, you know, had the proper licenses,
Right.
you know, electrical.
Electric,
and,
plumbing.
You know, or
HVAC.
ideally a HVAC person, which
Yeah.
has all the licenses.
Mhm.
Because that's our biggest and most costly expense for maintenance.
Yeah, servicing all the air units.
And, yeah, and they'll have to be technically savvy to operate the new Pembroke building, too.
Right.
A lot of that's gonna be
So you-
digitally controlled.
we'd have a go-to person when it's at a planning board meeting and it's 95 degrees up here in this room.
Might not, I don't know.
Not that,
And Janet was on vacation.
I don't know, man.
Right,
That's
everybody
wishful
said,
thinking, Gare.
You're the board of selectmen, you know,
Seriously,
and I
wishful
said,
thinking.
Janet's on vacation, I don't know what to tell you.
Nail my hat.
if we had preventive maintenance, a preventive maintenance plan, that
That'd be another
technically
story.
wouldn't help, wouldn't happen.
I mean,
Right.
for me, I just used to say, hey, listen, if you work where I used to, at 95 degrees is comfortable, so.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Bunch of doors and windows open and some big fans. All right, well, Mike will update us up on that as that rolls. I've been involved in that, Gary, and it's been a very slow-moving process.
Okay.
Just because there's been a lot of things we've had to compile that we still
I guess
are
it's
working
just
on.
like, because I don't remember, perhaps at some point we did say that the chairperson is appointed to this, but I mean, I haven't heard of it.
No, it was just something I was working on beforehand,
Okay, so,
so I just kind of
Finance
stayed
committee
involved in it.
has a rep,
Yeah.
Jim Lacy's
Lacey's on it.
really pushing
He's been
it along, too.
Yeah, he's been good. He's been definitely involved in it. All right, anything else? All right, our next selectmen meeting will be January 26th at 6:30 here in Town Hall. I hope everybody had a great Christmas, Hanukkah, great New Year's, and looking forward to a successful and I don't know, prosperous, thank you. I'm thinking profitable. I've got my Simon sales hat on. 2015. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good night. All right, a warrant